Freedom of speech seems to be dying in the USA. Peaceful anti-genocide protests have been aggressively stamped out at more than 50 university campuses in the United States. The amazing thing is that all the accusations that are levelled at my community, I live in the city of Hong Kong in southern China, are now more accurately turned around and aimed at the critics of my hometown. Now, before we get into that, I want to say thank you. In just 2 days, 589,000 people watched our video, which said that more people were arrested in 2 weeks at the US protests than in 4 months at the 2019 Hong Kong protests. But let's recognise that what's happening now is part of a larger process in which US authoritarianism is showing itself in public. Remember the so-called Arab Spring, a reference to a sort of public awakening? Well, people are now talking about an American Spring, which will be no bad thing. What's happening in the US is pretty shocking, with aggressive police destruction of peaceful anti-genocide protests at scores of locations. A peace camp at the University of Southern California was stormed by police in riot gear. A similar camp at UCLA was shut by police who reportedly used rubber bullets. Police arrested more than 100 protesters at Columbia University in New York, and so on and so on. Now let's look at campus protest in Hong Kong in 2019. Now I know this footage is real because I took it myself.
The black shirts have achieved independence. They've taken over several universities and turned them into fully autonomous kingdoms. Entrances are blocked. Try to get past that, or that, or that. Young men covered head to toe in black patrol the rooftops, keeping watch.
They smashed up some buildings, set fire to others. I was a lecturer at this university, and this is the ground floor coffee shop of the building where I worked.
This is what a coffee shop looks like after it's been renovated. All the windows are shattered, and inside it's been wrecked. You can see things have been set on fire. All the premium items have been smashed. Glass cabinet where the food is kept has been smashed. Even the cash register and all the items behind the counter have been destroyed. As you can see here, someone has burned the Starbucks teddy bear.
Now the protesters had bomb factories and they surrounded the university with booby traps, little nail weapons, one of which went right through my shoe and my sock into my foot.
I just pulled this out of my shoe. Pretty dangerous going for a walk around here. Be careful, everyone.
Did Hong Kong police move in and arrest the protesters? No. The police simply waited outside and showed a sense of humour. They played music, including one by local pop star Hacken Lee called Farewell to Campus. The protest ended with no one hurt, although the protesters had done billions of dollars worth of damage. Now for some more numbers. Now updated stats from AP confirm that aggressive US authorities have now arrested more than 2,500 protesters in about 3 weeks. Now let me remind you that the total number of protesters arrested in 4 months of protests in Hong Kong was 2,379, and scores of those were repeat arrests, so the actual number was smaller. Now some critics have said, but the US is bigger than Hong Kong. But sorry, this is not about geography, it's about numbers of protesters. There are actually far more Hong Kong protesters than US ones. Or at least that's true if you believe Western media, which I must admit is not a safe thing to do. Say my critics, in the US the majority of arrested protesters survive, while if you're arrested in Hong Kong, you are disappeared into mainland China, never to be seen again. That's just silly. There are no such cases. The Hong Kong legal system scores higher on international indexes than the US legal system. Say the critics. Between 2019 and 2020 there were 10,000 protester arrests in Hong Kong. True enough, but my video was about the first 4 months. Yet let's do some comparisons. Hong Kong arrested 10,279 protesters from mid-2019 to mid-2020. In the US, the George Floyd protest started at the end of May 2020. By the third week of June, there had been more than 14,000 arrests. So the US arrested more protesters in less than a month than Hong Kong arrested in a year. Again, clearly it's Hong Kong which is more restrained in allowing protest and arresting protesters. Say the critics, but the penalties for protesting in Hong Kong are much higher. And that's actually the opposite of the truth. Let me give you just one shocking example. In the US, making and throwing Molotov cocktails or petrol bombs can get a protester 20, 30, 40, 45 years in prison. This man got 20 years without chance of parole. In Hong Kong, vast numbers of people who did exactly that got no punishment at all. Do you know what the most common prison sentence for arrested Hong Kong protesters was? It was 0 days, 0 hours, and 0 minutes. That's because about 3 out of 4 arrested protesters in Hong Kong were not prosecuted, given the amount of brainwashing the young people had received. The government prosecution service chose to be extremely lenient, choosing to charge only about 2,500 of the most violent. The rest were just let go. Say the critics, but protesters are no longer allowed in Hong Kong. You know, that's completely untrue. They happen regularly. I made a whole video about that, so I won't repeat those points. I've given you some solid facts. Now, let's admit that the official narrative pushed by way too many Western politicians and media outlets is that the US is the land of the free, and Hong Kong is practically a police state. It's becoming obvious that the truth is very different. It's like China and the US are like swapping places in many ways. Come and see for yourself. Come to Hong Kong, come to see mainland China. I'll buy you a coffee or a bowl of noodles. Peace.